Well. We have a pretty cool talk today, and this one is very close to my heart. Super excited to be able to talk to you about this, and thank you for coming. Thank you for showing up for this. Because if these are issues for you, this is going to be kind of life changing. I know that may seem like an exaggeration, but it certainly has been for me. So, today we're going to talk about the perfectionism pain connection. Why something that has helped you to be such a rock star at home and work, because I know it has. I know it's been really important for you. Something that's helped you be such a rock star at home and work may be actually, unfortunately, the hidden factor that's keeping you stuck with chronic pain now at this stage of your life. As women in midlife, things tend to reach a boil. And maybe that's why this is all spilling over at this point in your life. So by the end of this stream, you're going to understand how personality traits that develop to help you may be causing you harm. And you will emerge from this 20 minutes with some hope and probably most importantly, some new opportunities for finding healing. So I hope you're ready. Let's dive right in. So if you're like myself, I'm admitting to this, and most of my clients that I've been working with this last 15, 20 years, you've been relying on an unimpeachable level of conscientiousness, right? Give me a thumbs up if this is you, right? You are self-reflective. You are very hard on yourself. You game out the outcomes of choices and conversations to a granular, impossible level of detail before you make them, and you analyze them to bits after you make them. Yeah, give me a thumbs up if this is you. I would be thumb upping all over the place right here. For you, making a mistake or being seen as less than perfect feels crushing. And I'm going to be vulnerable here for a moment, which is not something that I do very often. I'm a pretty private person, but this topic is so close to my heart. So it's worth it. I'm going to be vulnerable here just to demonstrate that I approach this topic from lived experience. I'm not here to judge. I'm right here with you. So let me give this example. So years ago, I was sitting around a campfire with some of my girlfriends in one of my girlfriend's backyard. And the conversation got like a little dark, a little intense. And the question that kind of went around the circle of us friends was, what's your worst fear? And I knew immediately what my answer was. It was, of course, something happening to my children. And they were all like, psh, that's the default. That doesn't count. Give us the real answer. And so I went with the answer that I felt in my gut to a cellular mitochondrial level. My biggest fear was letting someone, anyone, even an acquaintance, a stranger down. I'm not kidding. Like that really, really was my worst fear. And to me, it felt valid. And to me, it was the reason why I can get more done and with more skill than anyone I know. And it's also probably why at the time I was deep into a chronic pain issue that would steal years from my life. So, you have probably used perfectionism for quite some time, like myself, as a superpower. But in midlife, the same our armor that we have, the armor often tips over into back pain, into neck pain, migraines, IBS, knee pain, shoulder pain. So for the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to help you understand why. And we're not going to just talk about stress because we're tired of hearing about that. I'm tired of hearing about that. We're going to actually look at the hard science. We're going to dive into the psychoneuroimmunology of why these personality traits might be predictive of your pain levels. And more importantly, how to use neurocentric pain care to switch those signals off. So if you're just joining me, thank you. Very happy to have you here. We're going to dive into the evidence here. And the first piece of evidence that I want to discuss with you, believe I'm not going to get way into this. We're just going to give it a little skim, okay? So what is the physiological cost to these traits of perfectionism, people-pleasing, conscientiousness? So a 2025 study just last year in the journal Psychology and Health found a direct statistically significant correlation between chronic pain and high levels of perfectionism. I'm not just making this up. There's data for this. And this isn't the first data that's shown it. It's just the most recent, okay? So why is this? So when you have a self-oriented perfectionistic profile, your brain is in a state of constant error monitoring. Give me a thumbs up in the chat if this sounds familiar, right? You are constantly error monitoring, like I was 5, 6, 8 or 9 years ago when I made that comment to my friends around the campfire. So in somatic terms, this is hypervigilance. It's a nervous system that is not tuned to safety. It is not tuned to connection. It is not tuned to acceptance. It's tuned to threat. A nervous system that is tuned to threat. That's what perfectionism is. It's I can't make a mistake. That will put me in peril. And it feels like that, right? Your physiology responds to it that way. So our nervous systems don't just conjure this out of thin air, guys. Like you didn't just make this up because you're a type A, okay? We are not here about blaming. This process that your nervous system goes through, we could think of as neuroception. It's biological, it's in you. And it is an adaptation to your environment. So let's talk about environment just briefly. As women in the workplace, we often experience subtle or overt misogyny. I think we experience it so often that we don't even notice it anymore. Yeah. In our homes, we're responsible for being attuned to our families to keep things running smoothly. This probably sounds familiar, right? Like as the mom, you have to be 10 steps ahead of what's going on with those kids. Even first thing in the morning when you wake up. Why? Because if you're not, if even something goes slightly awry, your day gets a lot harder. Everyone in your household has a harder day. You're going to get to work late. You're going to be frazzled, right? Somebody's going to show up without their lunch or their project. Oh, thank you for the thumbs up. I'm sorry that you relate to that, but I'm glad you're here. So this hypervigilance has been super valuable to us. We adapted to be hypervigilant because it was important for our livelihoods, for our families. And there are other aspects of neuroception which develop when we are very, very young, right? If we're in a household where things don't always feel safe, then we get like little spidey sense, about needing to be perfect to stay in a good place with our family members. So it's like an error monitor that never turns off. And this is one I hear a lot from my clients. If you feel like you have an error monitor that never turns off, show me a thumbs up. Give me a yes. I would put a yes in there, but I'm giving a presentation at the moment. So here's the problem with this. Your brain doesn't distinguish between a social threat, making a mistake, and a physical threat, like an injury, right? Thank you. Yep, she says. Your brain doesn't distinguish between social threat and physical threat. The same part of the brain that processes physical harm processes the threat of economic harm or status loss, which were really, 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 really important to our ancestors, right? We didn't come up out of this in thin air, okay? So let me just skim the edges of the neuroscience here. I'm not going to go way into this, so please don't tune out. So our anterior cingulate cortex and insular cortex are responsible for processing all of the sensory information that enters the brain. There are no features of these regions of the brain capable of discriminating between the threat of bodily harm or social harm. All of it goes into the same pot. And here's why that's important, because you, from this point forward, shall now think of pain as a behavioral modifier. If your brain perceives threat that it can't manage through its very formidable list of subconscious biological processes, it will need for you to do something to address the threat. It's a behavioral modifier, right? So, why is pain so effective? Because it always gets our attention. It's the most effective behavioral modifier. So, pain is often how threats are addressed because it is such a compelling experience. And this happens regardless of the state of the tissues. This is regardless of the state of your tissues. You could feel pain as a response to social threat, to economic threat, even if the tissues are absolutely fine, but also if the tissues do have some degeneration. For example, 30% of people in their 30s, and far more of us in our 40s and more in our 50s, have osteoarthritic changes in their knees. That's people in their 30s, 30%. But this is important, only half of them have pain. 30% have osteoarthritic changes, only half of those people actually have pain. So how do you end up in the lucky group that doesn't have pain? It all comes down to your nervous systems. Here we are again, and this neuroception, because a system that is tuned to threat is more likely to generate a pain experience due to tissue changes, due to those osteoarthritic tissue changes, even when they're harmless, which often in osteoarthritis, they are harmless. So let's dig a little bit deeper into this. Let's go a little bit further. And if you're just joining me, thank you for being here. We're having a really lively discussion here about perfectionism and pain. So when we look at the last century of pain science, specifically the research of Robert Cloninger on personality, we find a trait known as harm avoidance. And you should know that if you're a perfectionist like myself, you are likely to score very high in this trait of harm avoidance. So Tiziano et al. From a 2018 study found that high harm avoidance is associated with increased pain sensitivity and altered pain modulation. Perfectionism leads to harm avoidance, leads to increased pain sensitivity and altered pain modulation. Because perfectionism is at its core a strategy for avoiding harm, is it not? If I can get ahead of everything, if I can control every single circumstance, surely I can avoid harm. It's a need to get ahead of and control potential threats, which we've already established feel more abundant to our personalities. And we're not recriminating here. We're not blaming. We got here honestly. We adapted to this due to our environment. So your brain, if you are a perfectionist like myself, is wired to anticipate mistakes and threats. And while this made you an awesome boss, it made you great at your career, it made you a stellar parent, it also means that your brain is constantly preheating those pain centers of your brain that we just talked about. You're not making it up. This pain is real. Your brain is simply overprotecting a high performing system. So people with high harm avoidance have higher activity in the anterior cingulate cortex that I referenced a moment ago, but also the amygdala. And you may remember that the amygdala is where we process so much of our fear and threat, those automatic responses to threat. So these are the parts of the brain that decide if a sensation is scary or safe, and our cingulate cortex, our amygdala are like, yeah, that's probably dangerous. Again, we got here honestly. So the mechanism here is a sensitive nervous system. This is not a flaw. It's a sensitive nervous system. So high harm avoiders are more likely to develop something called a conditioned fear response. How does this play out for you in your life? Your brain learns that being stressed, having too much on your plate, having somebody be mad at you is dangerous. So it uses pain to force you to stop. It's a protection mechanism that has very much overreached its bounds. One time it was helpful. There has been a point in your life, or many, where it was helpful, but now it's harmful. And this is what you really need to know from this talk. No pain treatment at your medical office can treat this. Your PT cannot, there is no code for insurance for treating this high harm avoidance. And yet it must be addressed. This is why to overcome this, it requires much deeper work to repattern. Much deeper work. And this is why I use a combination of evidence-informed strategies, including somatic movement education, biofeedback, to help you unravel this tangle of conditioned responses and to create new ones. So let's talk about what's going on with you. Here are some things that you might already be familiar with. That high chest breathing. What does that do? It creates a negative feedback loop. So the high chest breathing happens because we've got this neuroception tuned to threat, but it also amps up the nervous system. It keeps you in that autonomic alarm state. The shoulders hiked up like armor. I once really dug deep with a client about these shoulders up. She's like, oh, at work, it's just sitting at the desk all day really hurts my neck and my shoulders. I'm in so much pain by the end of the day. And the pain is caused by this movement, right? And I said, okay, when do you feel that occurring? And she's like, oh my gosh, I have this horrible boss, and she's just breathing down my neck, and I start to feel my shoulders come up and up and up, right? So is the pain caused by this, or is it caused by this constant jerk boss over your shoulder and your response to that? If we're just addressing posture, we're not going to even come close to fixing that, right? What other things might you be noticing? The inability to settle, really, really light sleep. Give me a yes or a thumbs up if any of these are resonating for you. Waking up in the middle of the night. Chronic tension in your pelvic floor. Many people don't even know this is happening. So let me ask you a few questions. Are you making diamonds at all times by squeezing your butt cheeks? Maybe you're doing it right now. Yes, Mandy, I am making diamonds. Why am I making? I don't know why I'm so tense. That's a pretty good indication that you've got chronic tension in that pelvic floor. Other things that you may have noticed: insomnia, tension generally. Yeah. Constipation. That's chronic tension in your pelvic floor. Hemorrhoids. Oh no, so horrible. Back pain. How do we get from perfectionism to hemorrhoids? I feel like we can draw a really clear line here. And here's some more evidence, because I told you we're going to dive into the data here. So the Journal of Traumatic Stress has shown that brief somatic interventions, simply learning how to signal safety to the body, can significantly reduce these subconscious processes that are keeping pain alive. Where can you start with somatic education? First thing, take my neural audit. I pinned it at the top of the comments. I think you're going to want to hear what I have to say. So just click that link so you can open the tab. But stay with me, because I'm going to provide some solutions here. I'm going to provide some hope. So a landmark 2021 study, this was big. It's still big. We're still talking about this in the pain care world. 2021 study in the JAMA Psychiatry Journal shows us how learning to retune our neuroception can have a big impact on our pain. So in this study, they took people with chronic back pain and used something called pain reprocessing therapy. I'm going to say more about that in a second. You may be familiar with it. I have a lot to say about it. Use pain reprocessing therapy, PRT, with these people with chronic back pain. They didn't do anything to the tissues. They didn't address discs or muscles, nothing, no treatments even came close to addressing tissues. What they did instead in this intervention is they retrained the brain to view danger signals as non-threatening. What was the result? 66% of the participants, 66% of the participants were pain-free or nearly pain-free after 4 weeks. This is important because you may be listening thinking, okay, yes, this is me. But like, how difficult will it be to fix this? How long will it take to fix this? This seems like a task that I just can't even afford to take on. 66% of people were pain free or nearly pain free after 4 weeks. And by the way, even if it did take 6 months, do you think you'd look back at the end of 6 months and be like, what a waste? I guarantee, I've been doing this for a long time. You would not, even if it took 2 years. So what's the takeaway? This proves that your pain is real, but if it's lasted longer than 3 to 6 months, it's neuroplastic. It's nervous system related because your brain learned to protect you with pain because it learned that it can also learn to stop. This should give you hope. And this should also emphasize the importance of addressing the hyper-vigilant threat system to actually move beyond this persistent pain rather than always addressing the tissues, which you know isn't working, or you wouldn't be here right now. So I said I was going to say something about PRT. I'm going to say something about pain reprocessing therapy. I think PRT is a great step toward biopsychosocial pain care, evidence-informed pain care. I think it's been a really positive contribution to the field. However, it is incomplete because PRT only addresses your thoughts. It asks you to use your intellect to fix something that is subconscious, that is cellular, right? The nervous system is like the puppet master pulling these strings, and it's asking you to use cognition to influence the puppet master. It doesn't work. And in my experience, it can create a pretty high level of distress amongst people who are using only this technique. So I always say that pain doesn't happen in a body part, it happens in a unified self. My programs are holistic. We address this attunement to threat, yes, through intellect, because you're smart, you can do shit, okay? Yes, through intellect, like PRT, because it has been a positive contribution, but also subconsciously through movement, through biofeedback, through nutrition, through lifestyle, through taking a deep, hard look at how all of these things are playing into your threat system. So, yes, we need to address it cognitively, but we also have to address it in an embodied way. If we're trying to heal the body, we have to address the body, and PRT discourages its patients from addressing the body. I don't like that at all. So I know that you have tried all the solutions that treated you like a pain condition or treated you like a body part. Maybe with this information, it's now time to feel the safety, the confidence of attending to your whole self. Because the goal isn't just to get out of pain, it's to reclaim all the things that pain and perfectionism have stolen. It's stolen your peace, your confidence, joy, the ability to connect. So let's come back to the beginning here. Like, we know this perfectionism, conscientiousness, and people pleasing have really, in many ways, contributed to this formidable drive and competence that make you you. So we don't want to get rid of that. We want to channel that. We want to use that to reinforce our belief in ourselves that we do have the skill. We do have the commitment to retrain our nervous systems, whether it takes 4 weeks or 12 weeks or 6 months. So know this, you cannot perfect your way out of this. You have to repattern your way out. And for many, Guidance is needed. That's what I do. So, to help you find your starting point, I've developed my neural audit quiz. It's not a clinical assessment, it's a proprietary tool that I use to help us get to the next phase. It's a 3-minute deep dive into your nervous system's bracing patterns. So let's see where you stand, get you back to leading and living and moving without this pain. It can be done. So I want to know if you have any questions. If you have any questions, that's the end of what I had to say here. But this is intense stuff. What do you want to know about pain and personality traits? What do you want to know about neuroception and how it is developed? What do you want to know about repatterning? Repatterning the nervous systems so that we can tune instead of to threat, tune to peace, to connection, to safety, to joy. You might be listening to me say that thinking, that's impossible. I can't tune to safety. There's a lot of people that can and do. It could be you. Besides the audit, recommend any other resources on this topic or practical tips? Oh, yes. So, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, definitely subscribe to my channel. I try to post on there at least once a week, sometimes more. I often um, uh, provide practices, somatic practices, mindfulness, breathing exercises, the same ones that I use with my clients. So those could be really useful to you. If you're wanting something a little bit deeper, if you're wanting a whole lot of resources, then I would recommend that you have a look at my Somatic Strength Collective. I'll put it in the chat here real quick. Right at the top. The Somatic Strength Collective has all of these practices. It's got all of these resources, breathing. There's even a community in there in case you have questions, you can have access directly to me. In the Somatic Strength Collective, you can try it for free. I know that this is like a big risk. You're like, wow, could this work for me? I'm not expecting you to gamble on that question. Do it for 7 days. Try it for 7 days. It's on me. And if you decide it's not for you, then you just cancel. There's no risk. So those are kind of what I would recommend. Those are the quick recommendations. Obviously, I have a number of ways that you could work with me, but you might just be curious to see, okay, how could somatic movement work for me? Or maybe you're even wondering, like, what does that even look like? Join the collective. You will have lots and lots and lots of experiences with what that looks like. Any other questions? Any other questions? Hopefully, I answered that fully for you. So happy to have you here, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that that was a helpful discussion. And, if you got here late, no worries. It's going to just upload right onto my channel. So make sure that you subscribe and then you can go to my lives. I have other lives, lots of great content, so much great content in there. If this is something you're struggling with, there's a next step on the channel for sure. For sure. For sure. Oh, good. I'm so glad to hear that. That's awesome. Well, hopefully you took the audit, which means you're going to be in my community. If you took the audit, I already sent you an email. So if you have any additional questions, my friend, reply. We can chat. Okay, guys. Well, so nice to have you here. Thank you so, so much for your time. And I'll see you on my next YouTube live.